You think America would be a better place if we instantly lost those members of its population?
100%. Yeah. If we got rid of all illegals, yeah, suddenly the cost of housing goes down because the demand is lower. Suddenly the price that you're paid for middle and lower class wages increases because there's not this supply curve of infinite labor coming from the third world.
Size?
Like you want to talk classroom size, the pressure on our medical system, like all of these things would be alleviated immediately. And so the idea that you so you're saying like, Hutch, what I'm hearing is like, oh, we can't deport them because of this these asylum laws, this, that, and the other. But then when push comes to shove, and I say, if you could remove this issue entirely, and not in some cruel way where they're kept in cages or something, just immediately magically deported, you say no.
No. Yeah.
Okay, so you have a political vested interest in these people pouring in.
No, I think there's a middle ground here. I feel like when we're talking about violent people who commit violent crimes, I have no problem deporting these people. My heart's not gonna bleed for them. When you talk about the economic consequences of getting rid of what you guys say 10 to 20 million people that are here illegally, that will cause inflation 100%. And so when I say that people support mass deportation programs on paper, this is what I mean. So like, let's say Trump is actually successful and he deports 10 to 20 million people. And then people go to the grocery store and an avocado costs $6. I really doubt that support for mass deportation is going to stay at 54% at that point. People say that they want to value like protection, like they like protectionist economic policies like tariffs because it's going to supposedly, like cause all this like boon and domestic manufacturing. But the cost of the tariffs and the cost of this mass deportation, it will cause the price of goods and services to go up. And the MAGA theory is that people are going to value this whole made in America thing and protect our country. What
about 2018? 2018, Trump rolled out an enormous amount of tariffs, and the criticisms you're levying now are the same that happened then, where it was going to cause it was going to cause an enormous amount of inflation. Unemployment was going to be a problem, and none of that happened. What it did was actually bring a bit of manufacturing back home, and like. The problem with the tariff evaluation is Trump will say something like, "We're gonna tariff Mexico at 3,000%. We're fucking them over, folks." And then analysts or journalists or whatever, will look at that absurdly high number that he's using as a negotiation tactic, and then they will extrapolate data from the assumption that is where the baseline will be, and that's just not an accurate way to look at those situations.
Well, I'm just taking him at his word. His proposed policy was universal tariffs, like 20% on all imports coming into the country. That will cause prices to go up. And we'll see how much, like American Apparel, I think they did an experiment where they had some of their clothes that were outsourced to other countries. Those were cheaper, obviously. And then they introduced a line of clothing that was purely done made in America. Those costs were higher, and people overwhelmingly rejected the second choice.
Do you think that it's worthwhile to have like? Do you think the lower cost potentially of like American Apparel, just as an example, not that that's the extent of it, is like worthwhile in keeping like a permanent borderline slave class around to do these things? Meanwhile, these borderline slaves are doing work for free, and that's also lowering wages for Americans that would otherwise. What do you mean?
So like NAFTA, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, we have free trade agreements with many countries that don't. Yeah,
I don't like the free trade shit. That's part of what I'm saying is like, yeah, we're getting free cheap shit
the
from
consequences of free trade. People prefer lower prices. They do.
But it's not worth it to maintain that so we can get cheap plastic shit that's low quality from China.
It's not worth it if you don't
Ideally,
do enough
it
to
would be better to have manufacturing.
So there are failures of like neoliberalism. There are failures of trade agreements that outsource manufacturing jobs and products or whatever to different countries. And then you leave these communities, especially like concentrated in Appalachia and the Midwest, like a lot of these cities became destitute because all these jobs were sent offshore. If you do a trade agreement, but you don't do anything to like remedy that suffering, then there are obviously going to be problems. And so if you're like,
that's what we're running into.
There are really good consequences of free trade. Like some countries just, they have much stronger industries when it comes to like agriculture or manufacturing or like different countries.
I don't see why we should have to settle for free trade.
Yeah.
Though.
Free trade is a bad deal for us.
I feel like
free trade is the reason why the abject poverty, global poverty has.
Sorry, I've been waiting longer though.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
It's been no.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Do you want to go instead? I can take.
Fuck no.
All right. So my issue with free trade is this. It makes your country bad and uncompetitive. We've seen it already in practice in the extreme in Russia. Russia had protection. Wait, I think I said it backwards. My problem with protectionism is this. It makes your country bad and uncompetitive. When the wall fell around Russia and we finally got to see inside, they looked 40 years behind us in terms of technology. We thought Russia was our peer. And then we get there and we're like, holy fucking shit. Look at their cars. Look at their agriculture practices. Look at their manufacturing practices. Look at what communism has done to this country and how people aren't working and being the best they can be. And they didn't have to, because their employment was guaranteed and everything was locked in and they really weren't competitive with anywhere else. So they just had a shitty country that didn't produce anything good and was uncompetitive with the rest of the world, and they collapsed and they lost the Cold War. If America has protections, like to quote Taylor, 3,000% tariffs or something ridiculous like that, the same thing would happen to us. Our industries, our auto industry would get fat. Our cars would suck cock. Our agriculture would get expensive because we're protected from everyone who's competing with us. It's Japan's lean, mean manufacturing that made American cars better. It is whatever, China's tight manufacturing that makes us keep our own manufacturing as lean and mean as it has to be to compete with these people. If we start putting tariffs and protecting these companies, then they're going to be a little more profitable in the short term as they raise their prices to match the tariffed prices. And then in the long term, they're going to be outdated and shitty, because that's what happens when you protect them.
I don't know if that's like historically that's not accurate, because the highest quality the highest quality American goods came in times during very high tariffs.
What are you talking about?
Meaning that tariffs weren't enacted enormously until the 40s, or they weren't pulled back enormously until the 30s, 40s.
Tariffs, but way
we had
that.
Massive tariffs. Yeah, most of our we still have some tariffs, but most of our tariffs, or most of our federal budget,
there are tariffs on everything.
Yeah, most of our federal budget was supplied via tariffs prior to what was the year that we made income tax
America
a thing?
Didn't peak in 1975.
Dude, you can find a refrigerator from 1940 that is going to work longer than a Samsung you buy today. And so
those are consumer choices.
This idea that tariffs are going to ruin our economy, I don't think is accurate. Look at Germany, for example. Germany has tariffs in place where if you want to sell a Ford, if we want to sell Ford in Germany, we have to manufacture it in Germany. There has to be a plant in Germany where Germans are employed to create those cars, and then you're allowed to sell it there.
Volkswagens would be more reliable if there were fewer tariffs.
Do you not see the benefit though? And just that one simple example of
what can happen is you can tariff some more competitive country, industry, etc., to the point where your local one is propped up when it shouldn't exist, because in any fair competition, it would be put out of business. And now as an American, all you do is you buy either this shitty thing that should be put out of business because they don't do a good job, or you pay the tariffs and get it from somewhere else. When you protect someone and make it so they can't lose their job, they can't lose their customers, then they do a bad job.
We should in my view, it shouldn't be an open and fair full economy like that. We should have advantages. We're America. When we're being taken advantage of by other countries who levy tariffs against us and we're engaging in free trade or whatever with them, that's not beneficial. And so just something as simple as if Toyota wants to sell cars here, you got to build a plant here. You got to build plants here, and you have to manufacture here. You have to employ Americans to create these cars and then sell them domestically.
They
don't do it fully.
Countries that pursue a protectionist economic policy broadly suffer. They're the ones that suffer. The ones that are engaged in free trade. And every country can do targeted tariffs. And there's different reasons why you would do targeted tariffs. If you're trying to shore up local industries, or if you're trying to punish a bad actor for some action they took as a part of a trade deficit or something like that. But if you do a broad policy of like tariffing all imports, you might that might end up with like, I don't know, some tens of thousands of new manufacturing jobs or whatever. But the consequences of that is going to be felt throughout the entire electorate.
I think the whole
prices
point
will go up. And I don't think that the MAGA theory is that people are going to take pride in American products. And, I don't care that I paid,
I think
100% more for this product. I don't think that's going to happen.
The whole idea, I think the whole point is we can argue whether tariffs work or not. And the answer is yes and no, right? It's going to vary on every single thing. The point is it's a starting negotiation position, like I've sold a lot of cars, and the first position that I brought to the person was always a dick in the ass.
Yeah.
It was a big dick in the ass, and it was dry. And I presented it to them with fervor. I didn't say, "Oh, gee, I've got a dry dick to put in your ass here, sir. I hope you don't mind." I said, "Whoa, lucky you. Can you fucking believe it? A dry dick for your ass." And because every now and then they're like, "Oh, you promise?" And then they take the dry dick in the ass. And I think that's Trump. And when Trump says 25% across the board, and then Trudeau says something like, "That's $100 billion out of my economy. My country will collapse." And then Trump quips something about making them the 51st state in the union. He doesn't mean any of that. Funny. He means, it's a pretty dry dick for your ass if you don't do this little thing on automotive. I'd like 3% more here, and like, hey, this thing over here with the border. I think it's a negotiation position.
I agree with Kyle.
More commonly, though, countries just do retaliatory tariffs, and it's
but our dick's bigger. Our dick is bigger and drier, though. That's the whole point.
So Taylor countered my argument with something that wasn't my argument.
We chalk it.
Well, I didn't mean to address it, just honestly.
Thank you. I'm not suggesting that we allow someone to conduct a one-sided trade war against us without retaliation, right? If they have tariffs against us, we retaliate. That's what they're going to do if we put tariffs in. Everyone understands this. But the idea that tariffs, the general concept, tariffs allow your companies to go fat, lazy, and become less competitive is as simple for anyone who studied economics as supply and demand or times tables. Like, this isn't to be debated. When I take my competitors' prices and raise them by 25%, I can either raise mine and make bigger profits or get fat and bad. And those things will happen over time. Boom.
There's a lot of misunderstanding about what tariffs are too. Like, you guys realize that American companies pay the tariffs, right? It's not like China's paying the tariff or Canada's paying the tariff.
Yeah, it's the manufacturer doing it.
Right. And then those costs get passed on to the consumer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the way that
therefore they're incentivized to change their behavior in the market. And then, but again, it's a starting position to scare countries. That's why it's 25 or 30% across the board, which is such a huge number. As the president of Canada said, prime minister, whatever the fuck his fake job is, if he's out next year, it would cripple their economy. He might as well declare war if you're going to do 25% across the board. You know what I mean?
No, we have to fight Canada. That would be so funny.
Dude, I hope Trudeau's out next.
All of Michigan.
No, they wouldn't even make it. They wouldn't make it to Detroit. We'd fuck those idiots up.
I'm just generally
shout out Canada. I'm sorry, you're not idiots. Second favorite country.
A protectionist economic policy. Like we've seen global poverty like plummet because of free trade. And
I don't care about global poverty.
Well, we've also seen.
I would say that's more a consequence of tech, not free trade.
No, free trade definitely.
If the U.S. poverty would go down 1%, I would have the rest of the world go up 10. If it meant burning an entire nation so that we'd all have like better iPhones, I'd be for it. I am very much America first kind of guy.
More about the iPhone.
Dude, no, Kyle's 1,000,000% right on this. Couldn't agree more.
How long will my battery last?
Oh, that's the thing, Woody. It's powered by your heartbeat. Okay, you open your hand and the phone is just it comes out of your skin like some Spider-Man. You're gonna love
it's a two-way street though, because the trade agreements that we enter into result in lower costs for consumers, which is.
Can you say that again, Hutch? I tuned in the middle.
The free trade agreements that we enter into, like TPP or NAFTA, they result in lower costs for American consumers. So, for example, 2 out of 3 tomatoes that Americans consume and come from Mexico. Like, if all of a sudden if he actually followed through on this tariff, and like, let's say he doesn't do a opening position or whatever, let's say he actually follows through, that is going to cost, like, the cost of like vegetables, like agriculture is going to skyrocket. And at that point, we're going to see if the MAGA theory is correct, if it happens, that Americans are going to be happy to pay these higher prices. I don't think they will. I think if you give people the option of spending less on goods, 99 out of 100 people are going to say, yeah, I'd rather spend $3 instead of $5.
I only buy
or at least that's what they're going to do. Right. I believe 50-50 will say it. 99 out of 100 will
exactly.
Do it.
Yeah.
What I believe is that that's the beauty of this.
Like,
That's the beauty of this presidency. It doesn't fucking matter what the electorate thinks. And he knows it. This is it. There's no next term. He doesn't care about your thoughts and concerns, your poll numbers. He doesn't care about his approval ratings. What he cares about, he might care about a legacy, but what he probably cares about is getting fucking even after the nonsense that he went through over the past year. Let's hope he cares more about legacy than getting even, because it's either or for him at this point, and he can go as far as he wants in either direction. I wouldn't say he's a lame duck president. I would say he's got nothing to lose, that he can make big decisions. Remember when Obama was whispering to the Russian ambassador, hey, tell your boss, I'll have more wiggle room after the election. And they caught him on audio and they played it. That won't be happening because there is no next time.
That's not collusion with a foreign leader. It's different.
No, that's different. That's different.
Yeah. Definitely not.